All right, everybody, welcome to the Ridgeline Hunting podcast. I am your host, David Crane, and I am actually recording this out of my garage. So I just got done doing one of the backdrop displays. This is just one half of it. The other one's right over here on the other side. With that being said, that means we are getting ready for the 2025 Sportsman show here in Washington State. So I'm super excited. David Sandana is going to be back. He's going to be at the show. So we're both really excited for the show. Last year there was a huge response. We loved everybody coming by the booth, saying hi, and they were actually asking for merch. But actually, before we get into that, this is the first recording in 2025, so I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday, but yeah, this is the first recording in 2025, and we're still going on strong. This is, I think, our third year at the Sportsman show, and one of the asks was, where's merch? So we're actually kind of doing this with a giveaway. So every single year we've had a giveaway. Phelps Game Calls has been with us since day one. They've thrown in some awesome gear. We have the Crazy Elk Company. Thank you, Ross Sharp. He hooked us up. He's going to give us a couple tag wallets. And I have been a part of the field staff for 2O Gear. It's the hat that I have on right here. They are throwing in a $500 gift card. That's right, $500 gift card. So altogether, it's going to be around like $700. Now, there's going to be a couple ways that you can enter. So one of them is purchasing one of our 3 hats. We have black, gray, and the olive green. Now that will get you, I'm not sure how many entries I want to do with those, but anywhere from 5 to 10 entries. Or you can go the free route, and all you need to do is, number 1, subscribe and or follow us on the podcast. And that's just 1 entry. So it's not 1 entry for each, it's just 1 entry. Or you can pay $25, and let's say you get 10 entries. Maybe we'll just go with that. Maybe it'll be 10 entries. All you have to do is buy a hat, but it's as supplies last. We don't have like a whole plethora of hats, but it will get you entered in to the giveaway. So let's start off with the Phelps Game Calls. I actually have those in hand. Phelps Bugle Tube. That's right, getting you ready for the elk season. Now this one I believe came out last year. This is the Unleashed V2 Bugle Tube. I actually use this one in the field. It's an awesome bugle tube. It's also like new elk hunter friendly, as in it comes with the Easy Bugler mouth reed. So there's a mouth reed that actually comes with it. You don't have to throw in a diaphragm, but let's say you use diaphragms like I do. We have the beginner 3-pack. This one comes with the amped black, green, and gray. I swear by the amped black. I love that thing. And then I don't know how many times we've talked about the Phelps Easy Sucker. This thing is awesome. It works. We've called in elk with this. I mean, we didn't get it done, but we've called in elk with this. It works, and it's very easy to use. Again, Phelps has stepped it up with trying to get the beginner hunter out there. And let's say you are not the best caller with the mouth reed, or let's say you can't throw it in your mouth because you choke on it. These are easy solutions right here, but we're giving these away. All you have to do is enter into the giveaway. So that means you need to be at the Sportsman show to enter. You do not need to be present to win, but you need to be at the Sportsman show. So either buying a hat or subscribing or following us. And if you already do that, you get to I think we're just gonna have some like sticky notes. You're going to write your name, number on the sticky note, throw it in the bucket, and you're entered to win. All you have to do is pretty much just show us that you are a subscriber or a follower, and you're entered to win. And, you know, the Phillips game calls, the tag wallets, and the $500 gift card. I mean, come on. It's an awesome giveaway. It's probably our best giveaway so far. And, you know, we just want to say thank you for everybody that has been, you know, on this journey with us. This is our story, our adventures, you know, what we're doing in the outdoors, what we're doing to become better hunters, you know, doing the 3D shoots, either at Hoodoo, Stevens Pass, or practicing here at home. We video pretty much everything. That even comes with, like, you know, fishing and duck hunting. We're trying to get some bears on the ground, but, you know, they've eluded us. But yeah, 2025, can't believe it. We are super excited to be back at the Sportsman Show. So we really want to thank, you know, the people, you know, behind the scenes at the Sportsman Show. Thank you very much for us, you know, from us to you, for us to be, you know, doing our thing at this show. So we really appreciate that. So thank you very much, everybody over there. And, you know, everybody that's thrown in for sponsorships for us and just helping us out along the way too. So we just want to say thank you. And with that being said, the Sportsman Show starts, this is actually coming out the week of the Sportsman Show. So it starts the 29th through the 2nd, and we will be there every single day. I think I'll be there at 2 p.m. So if you're there anytime before then, you're probably just going to see an empty booth. But I will be there the 29th through Sunday, from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 2 p.m. to close. And then Saturday and Sunday, I'll be there from open to close. I'm not sure when Dave is going to be there. Just the guy runs, you know, a couple businesses. It's a little bit harder for him to step away and be there as long as I can, but I'm hoping that he will be, you know, he'll be there. So I'm excited for that, because it's been, almost a year since we've recorded a podcast together. So I'm excited to have, you know, Dave at the show. And for all the new people, you know, I always say, oh yeah, David Sandana, they actually get to be able to put a face to the name, because it's been a little while since he's been on the podcast and actually even in front of the camera. So with that being said, I just got back from Arizona earlier this month on a mule deer hunt, over-the-counter archery hunt, and it was absolutely fantastic. I did not film my tag, but I'm going to get to what happened and why I didn't fill the tag. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So day one, I'm hunting right after I land. So I fly in to Arizona, jump in the car with Kirk, and we are actually heading straight to deer camp. So I get to deer camp, get everything set up. By that time it's night, so my very first day I'm not actually able to hunt, and I'm hunting my 2024 tag, the end of that season. So I have 2 days to get it done with my 2024 tag, and unfortunately I didn't see any bucks. So I was seeing does, but no bucks, and I was seeing does at night. So it was a little bit discouraging, but also I was seeing deer. I just wasn't seeing bucks, and that happens. But the beginning of my 2025 tag, right off the bat, so Kirk, this is New Year's Day. Kirk has the day off. He's like, hey man, I'm going to come out and be an extra pair of eyes for you. Let's see if we can get you on something, since you're kind of struggling the first couple days. And the first 2 days, I was actually hunting in an area that I had never hunted. I was in the same like vicinity of where I was, you know, previously in 2024, but it burned. So that area, early season 2024, so the season starts January 1. So in 24, I hunted 5 days of that early season tag. And then through the summer, there was a huge burn in that area. So then I had to like go to another spot that was a little bit further south, and I had never been in that area. So I pick a pin, go and see if you can find some deer. That was pretty much the plan. It didn't work out like that. So we went back. We actually went back into the burn the very first day of that 2025 tag, and instantly we're seeing deer. Not even an hour later, we saw, well, the biggest buck of the trip, way outside his ears. He was fairly tall, but not super tall, but he was way outside his ears. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I move in, and before we, right when we spotted this deer, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go move in after it. Let's see if it's gonna bed down, because it's right in that time where the heat's just starting to pressure up. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna delayer and then go to another spot and see where he's gonna bed at, because where we were, the deer kind of like went around this, down in this field, but we couldn't see where he was from where we were glassing, because there was like a huge knob. So basically I stripped down, went around the knob, and was able to spot him again and then find out where he was bedding. But when he bedded down, I started moving in, and right when I started moving in, I'm like, bow in hand, I'm going. Boom, look down, release is not on my wrist, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the crap. So I call Kirk and I was like, hey man, do you remember where I was like stripping down? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm like 5 feet from there. And I was like, okay, well look to your right, do you see a release? And he was like, oh my god, dude, what did you do? So I had to go back up the hill and around it, meet up with Kirk, grab my release, and then go after the deer. Luckily, the deer was like passed out. So I was able to come back around the knob, see where the deer was, and make my trek in. And it is super crunchy, because he laid down like right in the middle of the burn. So as I'm moving in, I'm kind of crunching along, and at about 85 yards, I see the deer stand up. Now, I have a 5-pin mover sight, and I do practice from like 60 to 100 yards. That is kind of like my zone. I always practice those shots, but it stood up at about 85 yards, and I'm still trying to like creep in, but the deer is behind like this, I don't know what kind of cactus it was, but it was behind a cactus, but it looked like a tree. So to describe it, it looks like a bush, but it looks like a bunch of little like pickles are hanging off of it with thorns all over them. So, and it's fairly wide, and it's behind it, and there's no shot. So I'm moving in, I get up to about 68 yards or something like that, and that was basically the danger zone. He turned around and took off, and I'm just like, son of a gun. So I walk up to where he was, just kind of looking around, seeing where he went, and I mean, I can see him like off in the distance. He's at like 300 yards now, and then finally turns around and looks back. So I was like, okay, well that stock's blown. And I'm just like, gosh, dang it. And I'm turned and look, and I'm looking back up to it, because I dropped my pack. I don't know why, but I dropped my pack. My tripod and binos are back on the hill with my pack and everything, and I'm kind of like, oh, okay, well, there it is right there. I'm just gonna go beeline straight back to it. And as I turn, there's another buck behind another prickly pear cactus, but this one was a big one. It was probably about chest height, super wide. And I turn, and all I could see is this head and a rack, and it's not really looking at me. So if it turned to its side like this, all it had to do was take like a step and a half, and I would have shot him at 57 yards. But all I could see was his head. And I'm watching him. I draw back, and I'm waiting. Now I'm shooting an 80-pound draw bow, but once that thing is anchored in there, I'm solid, and I can probably sit there for a couple minutes. And as I'm drawing back, I get anchored. The deer, I don't know if it saw me draw or whatever, but it looked at me and then just walked away. And I'm like, oh crap. So I draw down, I kind of scurry to where, kind of where he was, look out, and he's super far out there. And then right when I'm watching this other deer go away, and he was a nice 3x3. He was really tall. I would say actually he was probably as tall as this bugle tube right here, from the bottom of the box to the top. Like he was tall, but it was more like he was still inside his ears. He was just really tall. Great buck. And as he's kind of like walking away, all of a sudden I see a coyote come across the hill, and I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? And I mean, they're way far out, so I'm just like, all right, I'll hunt back to my pack and let Kirk know that I boogered up the freaking stock that we found on this nice buck. And I'll actually play the video during this thing, but it was a really nice wide buck. I didn't get on video the stock in, but it was a cool stock, and it was my first stock of the season of 2025, and also my trip. So I was really hopeful, you know, what the season was going to turn into. And I get a text from Kirk saying that January 1, the unit that we were in was closing for the season, and it doesn't re-up again until December. I think it's December 12th or December 13th is when that late season starts, and then that's when they'll close the units too. So depending on how many tags are filled in that unit, they will shut down the unit once it hits its tag limit. So during that period of time, they hit their tag limit for the unit. So Kirk was just like, dude, this is the only unit you've hunted? And he was like, this is the only unit that I've ever hunted in this area. He was like, the unit across the highway that we're on is open. And he was like, we can try that one, or we can try another one. But he was like, we have the rest of the day today to try to get it done. Now, after those two screw ups on those bucks, I didn't actually see any deer for the rest of the day. So the game plan was I could still camp where I was camped at, and then just Kirk allowed me to borrow his side-by-side for year number 2, which I'm really grateful for, because without that, I probably wouldn't have seen anything. To get back in some of these areas where the deer are actually hanging out at, they're in there pretty deep. So thank you, Kirk, for allowing me to borrow your side-by-side for my trip, and just getting my camp set up. So Kirk actually went a day before I landed, set up my camp, got me just hooked up with everything. The video will be out soon, so check that out. Sorry, everybody. Tags were not filled. I started off this season pretty hopeful that I was going to get, you know, a buck down in Arizona, and spoiler alert, it didn't happen. But if you follow me on any social media, you would have already known that. But, you know, this is the story behind it all. But yeah, so Kirk, thank you so much, man. Just setting up my camp, getting me all, I was spoiled this trip. The camp was awesome. I had great food. Last time I was kind of like malnutrition. I was not eating very well. This time I ate great. I was cooking every night. So thank you very much, Kirk. It was much appreciated. But on to day 2, new unit. So that night, Kirk and I are kind of, you know, talking to each other over the phone, and we're sending pins to basically each other like, hey man, have you ever been back here? Because Kirk may have not have hunted the unit that I was going to, but he scouts all over the place, and he did scout that area just in case something like this would have happened. So he's dropping pins on like, hey man, you should check out this area over here, check this out. So that next day, I was basically just hitting, oh, my dog is freaking out right now. I think my son just came inside, but so my first day in this new unit, so it was the 2nd of January, I'm just checking out these pins that we had dropped just to see if there's good glassing areas, just to see like what's what. First area that I went into only goes back about 1.5 miles, and it hits a gate, and it's like definitely rolling hills. It looks flat. If you just stand and look, it looks completely flat, but it's like rolling hills, and the deer can just disappear. I stayed probably 4 or 5 hours. I spent my first morning in there just glassing around, getting down into the washes, checking those out. So what I mean by a wash is there's these areas in Arizona where when the rain comes, it's basically where all the rain collects and then it washes everything out. So it's like a riverbed pretty much, but it's all these like teeny little pebbles, like almost like sand. Really, really cool. Get down in there. It's a lot cooler than when you're up on the hill. You know, there's no shade, there's nothing. The heat's just blazing down on you. But when you get down in those washes, it's almost like 10 to 15 degrees cooler. There's shade. It's where deer are hanging out. So my idea was to kind of walk the washes, see what I can find through the washes. That didn't work out very well at all, because you only could go like 1.5 miles back, and then there was a gate that was like walk-in only, and I was just like, well, I'm trying to get to the mountains back in the back, and that's like 15 miles back on foot. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going through this area. Went to another area where there's another gate, went in there for the night, and I start seeing deer. Really nice. Saw a bunch of does, and then it's starting to get close to dark, and I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take me to get back. I start heading back, and I jumped a really nice buck. I didn't get anything on camera. It's really hard when you're out solo hunting, and let's say the camera's in the pack. I have a GoPro 360 that I have like on like a monopod, and I usually just have it kind of like in my backpack, kind of over my head, so it looks kind of like third person video game almost like, but it's great for different types of like camera views. But it's all in my pack, and I jumped these deer. So there was a bunch of does. If I'm coming down the road, there's a bunch of does on my right, and the buck was on my left, and he was trying to get to the does, because on that day was the first time that I actually saw bucks chasing does. So this time of the year in Arizona, the rut is just starting to either hit. So we actually thought, because I wasn't having any luck, and January 1st when we saw bucks, they were by themselves. There were no does, no nothing. So we're like, did the rut already happen? Like, blah, what's going on? But on January 2nd was the first time at night that the temps dropped drastically. And then it was cooler for the rest of the time that I was there. And then that's when we started really seeing bucks chasing does. So that night, that buck was chasing these does. He was on these does, and I split them up. So instantly I just stopped, watched this buck, and he didn't even run away. He just kind of walked down, and there's a wash down there, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna beat this buck to the wash, and he's gonna try to get to those does, and I'm gonna shoot him. So I get down, I'm in the wash, and he walks out at about 80 something yards, no shot at all, and he's starting to walk back, and I'm like, oh, okay. So now I'm gonna go up on the hill, come back down. There's gonna be another wash, because I think he's going into that one. Same thing, I did this for like a 1/2 mile, and the buck just never crossed the road. And what's crazy though is that he never really saw me after, I stopped the side-by-side, and the wind was going the opposite way. But he just kept on walking basically at like, anywhere from 80 to 90 yards, just up and over these hills. That's all he was doing. And then finally I was just like, all right, well, it's gonna be super dark. I can barely see my pins, and like, this hunt is over, like, I'm done. I'm walking back, and that dang thing jumps right behind me at like 100 and something yards, and I already walked like 40 yards back to as I was going back to the side-by-side, and I was like, dang it. But it was getting was getting to that point. I think it was still legal hunting hours, but it was still like, it was too dark. I wasn't going to do anything, because if I would have hit them and the deer didn't drop, I would have been on a blood trail at night, which isn't, I mean, I don't know how many times we've blood trailed something, you know, and it ends up getting dark and we find it. But I was just like, I'm not even going to bother with it. Good to you, Buck. You beat me on this one. Get in the side-by-side. By the time I got back to the side-by-side, it was pitch black anyways, and drove back to camp. And going into the third day, I was like, okay, I think I got this kind of figured out. And then nothing. I get back to early in the morning, hit that area. I get way back in the back, super far back there. From the highway, the mountains look like they're 100 miles away, but it's not that far away. It's just how flat everything is, and all of a sudden it's just like boom, a huge mountainside. I finally get back in there. I hit the mountains and a couple pins where I wanted to glass. It was probably about 8:30, which is prime time. You start seeing more deer kind of moving around, and then they kind of stop like right around 10:30. So I had a little bit of a window there. It took me a little bit of time to hike where I wanted to glass from, and sat there through lunch. I sat there until about 2:30, and I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna go back where I saw those deer last night. So I started heading back. Boom, instantly on deer, like almost right where I saw the deer from the other night. Bunch of does, no bucks, but it was cool to watch them, kind of mingle around and mill around and do their thing. And night comes, and I'm just like, gosh dang, man, another day with no bucks. And telling Kirk, like, because Kirk was like, dude, you gotta get back in those mountains and kind of tool around in there and try to figure it out. And I was like, dude, I went back there and there wasn't jack crap. And he was just like, well, it's gonna be super cold then, tomorrow, go back there again and just get up high and see what you can see. And I was like, all right, man, well, that's what I'm gonna do. And I went back the next morning, got in there super early this time. I made sure I was on top of the mountain at 6 a.m., like way before the sun even came up. So I'm back there and the sun's starting to come up, and I start seeing more and more hunters on like each peak. So I'm looking out, like, okay, there's hunters up there, there's hunters over there, there's hunters up there. And I'm like, gosh dang it, they got the same memo that Kirk sent me. I was like, I'm going to go back into the flats. Get back into the flats, and then I'm on deer again. Just on deer, on deer, on deer. And this time I didn't really wait. I came back to the flats probably about 8:30. Started seeing deer moving around, and it was on fire. Like, the bucks were in the rut. They were going all over the place, just chasing these does down like crazy. Had a couple of deer come running by me, and I was in some really thick stuff, so I couldn't get a shot, but it was just like a 2x2 buck, but his tongue was out, his mouth was open, he's just breathing all hard, he's chasing after this doe, and this doe is just running like its life depended on it. It was extremely funny. I wish I would have got that on video, because that was hilarious. He was like, and then just taking off after this doe. It was a great time. Now I'm going to get into the how did I booger this up? So after that day, it comes down to the last day of the hunt, and I've blown I don't know how many stalks, and it seems like I can't get within any closer than like 60 something yards, which is I can make that shot no problem. I can probably make it with my eyes closed. Now, I wouldn't do that, and I'm trying to, kill an animal and make it ethical and make it, not suffer. So the last day, and this is a day that we have to break down camp too. So I'm out there hunting my butt off. Actually, no, the next day we broke down camp, because we actually ended up predator hunting my very last day, and we didn't see anything. But so this is the day before the last day. I get into the flat, and I'm just hanging out. I'm just glassing, hanging out, doing my thing, and then all of a sudden, my light's gonna shut off. It's a motion light. There we go. But anyways, I'm in the flat, and I start picking off deer. I start picking them off, and there's a bunch of does. I'm looking, I'm just kind of like on this little, every once in a while on these hills, it'll just be like a bare hill, and it's just like, looks like a pile of rocks, you know, and I get on the top of the pile, and I can kind of see down into these different areas, and one of them, it's probably like 800 or 900 yards out, there's a wash that I can actually see. And all of a sudden, so there's does up on the hill on the other side of the wash. So if the wash is down here, it kind of goes up to another hill. I see this buck come right out of the wash and just stands there. And I'm, 800 or 900 yards away, maybe even further. I didn't range it, but it was far away. The 12 by 50s, I mean, I could see that it was a buck. I couldn't see how many points it was, and at that point, I knew it was bigger than a 2x2 because it was pretty much outside its ears, and I mean, it was probably from my elbow to the top of my hand was like the tying height. So I mean, I don't know, 20 inches or something. It was fairly tall, and I was just like, holy crap. So I was like, maybe not that big, maybe like 18 inches or something. But I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go after that buck, and I'm going in, I'm working my way where I think where I last saw them, because I pinned it on my Onyx, and I'm working my way through, and I step out, and I'm like, these deer should be fairly close, because I went through 2 washes, so I went over a hill, and I mean, it's a pretty long distance before you get to another wash. Went through one, came up, went through another one, and I'm like, man, I think I saw those deer like kind of like right in this area. I pick up my binos, and the freaking buck's looking right at me, and I'm like, boom, crap. And I mean, there's cactuses, and there's like small brush, but there's nothing like really to like hide behind. Like, I mean, it can see me. So like, oh crap. So I kind of like get back behind this other cactus that I kind of like stepped out to see, like, oh, they should be like right here. This buck didn't move. It didn't, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this thing did not move. So I'm creeping through, trying to get closer and closer. And that was probably when that buck was looking right at me, it was probably like 120 yards. So I was like, all right, start dropping some stuff off, because my pack at the time, I mean, it was super dusty. It's starting to like squeak. So every step I take is like, ring, ring, ring. And I was like, oh, I'm not having that. So I dropped my pack, and I'm starting to get closer and closer and closer, and I'm starting to range things. I'm like 85 yards, and I was like, okay. And I was like, every step I took was kind of loud, and I was like, ooh, took off my boots. So now I have like pretty thick merino socks on. It's super cold in the morning. I'm talking like, well, I wouldn't say super cold. 32 is cold for Arizona. So it was cold to me. It's like almost 80 the whole week and 32 in the morning. So it's drastic changes in the temperature. It's crazy. Beautiful, but crazy. So I drop my boots, take my boots off. I'm creeping in, stepping on every single thorn, cactus thing, whatever it is. It's all stabbing me in the feet. And I'm working my way in, and I get to about 68 yards, and I'm like, okay, there's only one more cactus in front of me, and it's one of those like the pickle ones. I'll have to look up what the heck this cactus is, but it just looks like a bush with a bunch of pickles hanging off of it with giant thorns. And I'm talking like 3-inch freaking thorns hanging off these things. I'm not exaggerating. That is the last bush between me and this deer. So I get up to that, and it's now I'm at about 58 to 60 yards, because I couldn't kind of like pinpoint the range on the buck. So I draw back behind the cactus, and I take like one big giant step, boom, and I fire, and that buck dropped down and turned into the cactus. Now, if it would have turned kind of the other way, I would have drilled it, but it matrixed my arrow, and I'm the whole time walking up to this buck too, I'm just like, this is my deer, this is it, I'm gonna fill my tag, boom, all these thoughts are kind of going through my head, and you shoot that arrow, and the deer I've never had a deer do that to me, but I mean, this deer was focused, it was on me, it knew there was nothing I could do to like try to get a different angle on this buck. I tried, and it still just kind of like followed me and turned straight at me. So it's it's a frontal shot, so I'm trying to drill it straight into its chest, and yeah, I missed there. I don't think I dropped my arm. I everything felt really solid. I am dealing with a shoulder injury, but that was not the issue. I was solid. Shot, everything was solid. That arrow was flying right at that sucker, and it just ducked down and turned. Now, if it would have just ducked, I probably would have drilled it in the face, which would have sucked, because I don't know how many times you see on social media of an arrow inside of a deer's head or something, it's walking around with an arrow in its head, or you can get the deflections off of its head as well, just because of how the head is shaped. And I don't want to be that guy, but clean miss. I went and checked the arrow. I actually thought I nailed him, but I walk up to the arrow and just instantly just deflated, like I just lost the Super Bowl. I'm just like, gosh, dang it. Can anything get any worse? And, for that hunt, no, nothing could get any worse than that. But, from hunting Arizona for the first time in 2024, I didn't get a shot on anything. I couldn't close the distance at all. I would get to about 85 yards in the wide open, and the whole herd's running away from me. This time I was able to close the distance on a nice buck. I really wish that you guys would have been able to see it. I had my 360 camera on my bow, and you couldn't see where the deer was. I saw the footage. It did not turn out great. I'll share that with everybody on the video of that deer hunt, but you can't see what the hell I'm shooting at, so it's just like crap. But yeah, I shot, and that buck just matrixed my arrow. But coming away from 2024 to 2025, I wanted to get some type of moccasins or something for my feet. I ended up just rocking my socks. The one thing that I'll say about that is that it does work. I wasn't really paying attention to what I was stepping on, because I was just focused on trying to shoot this deer, and screw my feet, I want the deer, right? So I'm going to be packing an extra pair of socks in my pack, only because after that I'm pulling a bunch of thorns out of my feet and my socks, which it would have been nice just to get them out of my feet and then just throw on another pair of socks, because it took me forever to get all the thorns out of my feet, and then I had to get all the thorns out of my socks, which you throw on your sock and you got something else poking you in your foot, and you're like, ah, crap, you got to pull the sock off, pull more thorns out. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't trade that hunt for the world. That was a awesome hunt. I cannot wait to go back again. I love hunting Arizona. I'm hooked. I really do love it. It's an awesome hunt. Almost every day I was, had opportunities to make a stock on something, and the weather was beautiful. It really, really was. It was beautiful. So, that was one takeaway, extra pair of socks. Number 2 was, don't be afraid to take your boots off. and I wasn't. The year before, I didn't want to take my boots off. I didn't want to get stabbed in my feet, but to be honest with you, it wasn't even really that bad. And I stepped on one of those damn pickle cactuses. That's actually on the video. After I shoot the deer, I take like a step off to my left, and I stepped right down on one of those like 3-inch thorny I mean, it's just covered in 3-inch thorns. I stepped on one. It hurt, but it wasn't anything too crazy. So that was my other one, is this, don't be afraid to drop the boots off. You can get real silent with just your socks. If you want to, slide on another pair of socks over the socks that you have. If you have those really thick, nice merino socks like I do, it just, the sound from the boots, everything is crunchy. The ground itself is crunchy, unless you're down in the wash and it's like super sandy. But even then, you can hear it. You can hear the boots. Oh, another thing. So my first year, I wore kind of a more spongier sole. For some reason, there's way more noise out of that spongier sole than the Crispies. I have Thors, the Crispy Thors, and it's kind of a harder sole. It made a little bit of noise, but not as much noise as my softer soled one. So I'm not going to get all sciencey on it. I have no idea why, but the Crispies performed freaking awesome. I mean, I was at 70 something yards before I took my boots off, and still just walked right up to this deer. So it was awesome. I mean, and it wasn't some young deer. It was a nice 4x4. He was super tall. He was, maybe to his ears, maybe just outside his ears. That other buck that I went to, it was like he was way outside his ears. It was nuts. He was a huge buck. His body was even huge. So, holy crap. But yeah, I'm hooked on Arizona. I want to definitely go back. The whole reason for me to even go down there is to test my skills, right? So, over here in Western Washington, it's hunting the jungle, and then going over there, I mean, you're in cactuses, and there's no trees. It's weird. Like the tallest bush is 7 or 8 feet tall. So it's different, and I love it. I really do love it. If you have an opportunity, get down to Arizona and have an awesome hunt. If you're an archery hunter, get out there and archery hunt. Now, if you're a rifle hunter, I think you have to do a draw for the rifle tag, but it's worth it. Start getting your points built up and get down there. It's a lot of fun. But thank you everybody for listening, and we're doing it again in 2025. We are back at the Sportsman Show. I really want to thank everybody for watching and listening. I mean, you guys are the ones that keep me going and keep me wanting to produce more videos and more podcasts, and I really enjoy it. I have a lot of fun doing it. It's not as often as I would like to. How we first started rolling out, our first couple years, it was basically every Monday. Life does get busy. Some things start to happen. Dave is extremely busy with his 2 businesses. He took on another business last year, and we both have kids. So I have a 17-year-old. He's in sports. I have a 12-year-old. He's doing sports and other things. So life does get busy, but I definitely enjoy doing this, not just for me, but for you guys as well. I can basically tell you what not to do until I really start punching on these tags. These last couple years have been rough for me, but I'm always hopeful for this next year to be that year. And I really do think in 2025, it's going to be back on track. So we'll see, right? So thank you everybody for being a part of this adventure and this journey. Thank you so much. And I really want to thank Phelps Game Calls, Crazy Elk Company, and 2O Gear. Check them out. We have discount codes in the description. I'm not positive if the Phelps one is working right now. I did contact the people over at Phelps to see what's going on with that. So if you're going to try to use that one, if it doesn't work, please let me know in the comments. The 2.0 gear is 25% off, and then we have 20% off with the Crazy Elk Company. So go and check those guys out, and come and check out our booth at the Sportsman Show. We are back again. It is the 29th of January through February 2nd. We will be there, and hopefully you will too, and you can get in on this giveaway. It's going to be awesome. Everybody, have a good night.